Funds. How many of us have them? Funds. Ones we can depend on. Get those funds. Welcome to the Balance Your Books podcast. I'm Kimberly.
I'm Keena.
And I'm April.
And we're your balanced partners.
Look, first and foremost. Don't
First
you know
and
people,
foremost.
People always say that. I always want it's like first is foremost. Anyway, make sure that you like and subscribe to this podcast. Hopefully you've gotten into it and you're starting to check out some of our topics. So make sure you like, subscribe, and also share with us what future topics you may want to hear.
Yeah, let us know.
We know a lot of different things. We can talk about a lot of different things. So we want to make sure that we get more feedback from you out there, and we're making sure that we're helping your businesses grow.
Share with a friend. Each one teach one.
Yes.
That's right. So today our topic is They Not Like Us.
If you A minor. If you did not watch the SNL 50th anniversary, you will not get that.
Yeah.
But please check it out.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Kendrick too, but shout out to SNL.
Yes.
Super
Will
Bowl
and Anna,
was the
right?
bomb.
Yes,
The name?
yes,
Super
yes.
Bowl.
So They Not Like Us. So April, what is They Not Like Us? What are we trying to talk about today?
I think what we're trying to talk about is the difference between contractors and employees.
That's right.
One is the
Yes.
they, one is the us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Either way, whoever it is, they're not the same.
Yes,
They're not the
exactly.
same.
They are not the
So-
same. They fill out different forms.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So April, tell us the definition of a contractor versus an employee.
Okay,
I'm putting you on the
want me to
spot.
give you a definition?
Yeah, yes.
Or just
I'm not
in
the
general.
Libra in here. I'm not trying to define stuff.
In
It
general.
doesn't have to be
if
the
you wanna
Webster
talk-
version, but the April version, not
'cause
the
I had
Webster
looked
version.
it up.
Yeah, not the
I hadn't
no.
looked it up. But okay, so an employee, one big difference is they fill out a W-4 and then they get a W-2. With contractors, they fill out a W-9 and they get, depending on the type of contractor, a NEC 1099 or a miscellaneous 1099, but most contractors that are working for you no longer get the miscellaneous. The government has decided to add another document to all the documents.
Of
we
course,
already
of
have.
course. So it keeps us getting money.
And what I also add to that is there is a clear distinction. Contractors, they're in control of their schedules. You don't really dictate to them when to work, how to work. You hire them for a particular service that they are providing you. That's one of the key distinctions between an employee and a contractor. Employees, obviously, you tell them when to come to work. You tell them what you need them to do, what they're going to work on for that day or that month.
They have
or that
objectives.
week, whatever.
They
Yes,
get performance reviews.
Absolutely. They get bonuses.
Hopefully.
Yes.
If you're making money.
Yes. Contractors don't get bonuses. Okay.
Contractors
Let's be
do not
clear.
get bonuses. No.
Even if you like your contractor, you don't want to record a bonus for a contractor.
Right.
Because that kind of gives the impression that maybe they're more of an employee versus a contractor.
That's
Can
right.
we back up a second, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you said employees fill out a W-4.
Yes.
What is that for?
Well, that's to capture how they'd like to have their withholdings handled. Are they married? Are they single? Do they have children? All of those different calculations come up with an allowance that then turns into a calculation as to how much taxes will be deducted.
Right, because taxes are deducted from the pay that you give an employee when you pay them. That's one of the
Right.
distinct differences. Whereas a contractor is usually a set amount or it's based on a number of hours that they work for you, usually in a given month. and then they'll send you an invoice. They need to send you an invoice because they are not an employee. So they should be sending you an invoice, and then you pay that invoice.
And these forms are filled out at the beginning. Before you pay anything, you capture the information.
Absolutely.
So then the W-2 versus the 1099 is for what?
Well, I mean, for your W-2, you're going to file that with your individual tax return. That is, I mean,
That is, but what I'm getting at is
what you get
that is the way.
That is the way for the non-accountant.
You as a business report back to that person how much you've paid them.
Okay, yes.
During the year.
During the calendar year.
During the calendar year. So with an employee getting a W-2 and a contractor getting a form of a 1099, either way, how much we pay the employee or contractor is going to get reported back to that person.
Yes,
That's right.
absolutely.
And you are required by the IRS to report how much money you have paid them, whether it's a contractor or employee, or you can get fined by the IRS. So it is required that you are tracking how much you're paying people.
Right.
And there are a lot, and I think that maybe, Kimberly, you've had a lot of experience from moving from employee to contractor.
Because I will quit a job.
So
Yes, you
give a little
will.
bit, because while we're also, a lot of what we're doing is based on the small business owner, but we also, for that contractor or that employee that's also listening or watching this podcast, tell them a little bit from your perspective on how to manage that.
So there are some differences. One, you look at, as an employee, you get a salary, right? And they break that salary down and they'll say, okay, you're getting paid $50 an hour. That's based on a 40-hour week. And then you get taxes taken out. You get some benefits like health insurance or whatever.
Hopefully.
And you get your salary.
Right.
If you're salaried, though, if you're working 50 hours a week, you still get that same salary.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at it from the standpoint of being a contractor, your hourly rate is going to be much more than what you make as a salaried employee. But you have to take into consideration that you're making this hourly rate that's higher. No one's taking out taxes. So when you file your taxes, you've got to pay those taxes if you're not paying them throughout the year, right? So you've got to pay that. No one is giving you that benefit of insurance. So, for example, the last company that I worked for full-time as a salaried employee, now what we paid towards insurance was a little higher than most companies because a lot of the staff was older. But let's say in a month, I paid $250 a month for my insurance. Now, on the marketplace, I pay close to $500 a month. That increase in hourly payment makes up for that. It should make up for that. It should make up for, if you're a contractor and you're getting paid a higher amount hourly, then you should be planning for that extra amount to pay for insurance, to pay taxes, things like that. But don't think just because now you were making $50 an hour, you were making $50 an hour at your company, now you're making $100 an hour, you're balling.
And that's the thing. A lot of times people be like, oh no, keep me 1099, because they think they're getting over it, and all you're going to do, don't lie to yourself. Like, if you know that you are not disciplined enough to make sure you're putting money aside for taxes, make sure you're putting money aside for your benefits, you might need to go get you a W-2 job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you still need to be planning for retirement, other investments, like you mentioned, healthcare, you covering all of your costs at that point. So, making sure you're keeping up with your phone, your mileage, if you're leasing a vehicle, that expense, which one is higher. Also, where you're working, you may be able to benefit from, the square footage of the space that you're using from
At
your
home. Yeah, those become business expenses for a
Yes.
contractor.
Yeah, not
That's
an
right.
employee.
Not an employee. And how did you manage that? Like when you were the contractor, how did you, we're going to get back to the small business, but I think it's important that we touch on this a little bit. And how did you manage when you were a contractor, or we're all a contractor now, compared to the employee? What are some tools or quick tricks?
There's no quick trick to it, because I have always been very detailed about managing my finances and having.
She always had a spreadsheet, y'all.
Always. So knowing that now I'm making more per paycheck, I made sure to set aside that more so that I could be prepared for tax. In all my years, I do my own taxes. I am not a tax accountant, but I have done my own taxes. In all my years, I've never been able to estimate on the penny, the dollar, how much I would have to owe or get back after I file my taxes. But there's a roundabout number based on last year, based on, So you put all that in a spreadsheet and you make sure you track all your expenses. So this time around, quitting my job knowing it was for good, when I bought a laptop, even though I already had another one, but I bought a laptop mainly for work, I track that expense. When I buy paper for my printer, I keep that expense. So the best way to do it is to have a tracking system for everything that you do that's related to your business.
Yes.
And if you're not necessarily your business, as a contractor, everything that you do to make money, you keep track of that.
Right.
How am I managing it? I still get surprised when I file my taxes every year, but I make sure I don't spend all my money. I make sure I keep some.
That's the main thing,
aside.
right? Is
I
that
make sure
you
I
have
keep
to,
some set
you
aside.
have to, probably the average tax rate for an individual in the U.S. is probably around 30%. Right. So if you at a minimum put aside 30% of what you make, you'll probably be okay. I mean, where's our little caption? We'll have that scroll.
We are not tax accountants.
We are not tax accountants.
Yeah. And I think that 30% might be closer to the 1% tax level.
Okay.
Most people not in 30%.
You think there are more?
No,
Less.
But that's what I'm saying. It's based on your income level.
Right. But what I'm saying is
Keena
that
is a baller.
No, but what I'm saying is, but if you put aside 30%, because if it ends up not needed for taxes, put it in an investment account or whatever. There's other podcasts that can help you with that part.
You'll definitely be good.
You will be good
with 30%.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, because everybody's not going to do a spreadsheet, right? So if you can at least keep that number in mind, like, okay, I got my money. Let me put this part aside. If you have it set up have a bank account, you're in a savings account, and you just have a certain amount every time you get an invoice paid, this amount just goes to that other account automatically. Right. So just something that quick that you can, if you're not going to do a spreadsheet and all that, at least do that for yourself.
Yeah.
The other thing with contractors is if you're contracting, depending on the type of jobs you're doing, you may not work every month.
Right.
Like my life, contracting outside of YBP, but contracting, I work 3 months, 4 months, then I'll not work for 2 months. So you have to plan for that. You have to plan for the future.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that when you're looking at a company that has contractors versus employees, what you have to take into consideration running the numbers is providing any type of benefits for your employees, taking out taxes. It might be easier for you to manage just paying an hourly rate.
Yep. And so let's flip back to that point. Let's flip back to the small business owner side of the house, right? There's certain behaviors that you need to have when you're managing employees versus contractors. And you can call those contractors, you can call them freelancers, you can call them consultants. It's somebody that every type of business calls them something else. We're just using the generic term contractor. But it's somebody that you have hired to do a specific work. And it has to be for specific work, right, April? It has to be for specific work that they are doing for you. And what are some of the behaviors that you, as a small business owner, must do and must keep in mind to stay out of trouble?
Well, I mean, I mentioned earlier what one of the main things is, which is making sure you have the proper forms. I go a little bit further in that if I hire a contractor, I'll not only get a 1099, but I'll also get a statement from them stating basically that they're an independent contractor, even when it comes to paying them.
That's why it's good to have an agreement, right?
Right.
So not just hire them and not do an agreement.
Statement of work is
Yeah,
what I
statement of
usually
work.
complete.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you can get a generic one. You can do
Yeah.
AI, Gemini, all
and
of them.
I also specify what the expectations are, so that they understand that their work product, depending on what they're doing, may be owned by my company, not just
That's right.
their work product.
Yep. Right.
That the clients that they're working on are proprietary. You cannot share any information about them.
That's
like
right.
I have all of that in a
confidentiality.
document. Absolutely.
Yep.
A confidentiality memorandum is what I call it.
Yep.
So I have all of that information, and I'm trying to think.
And a
of-
non-compete.
Yeah,
No? What do you
but
think? 'Cause
non-compete,
depending on-
you might have to consult with an attorney because some things are not. You can't put a non-compete on.
Well, meaning that they can't take, for instance, what you had them create and then they take it out and sell it.
That's part of that work product.
Right. So
though.
just making sure that's what I mean by non-compete. Because they clearly can provide their same services to multiple companies, and they should when
Right.
they're a contractor, right?
Absolutely.
They're not just working for you.
Right.
So they can provide those services to others, but they can't take what we did here and the tools that we used at YBP that are YBP proprietary and then use that somewhere else.
Well, let me tell you what, in my time of being a contractor, I've signed agreements that say if I am working on an assignment at, let's say, AT&T, and my assignment at AT&T is 6 months, I can't be up at AT&T talking to my manager like, hey, now when this is over, if you still need my work, I'm gonna, I'll give it to you for $125 an hour as opposed to the $150 an hour.
Because you
they're
contracted through another company.
Yeah, if I'm contracting through another
AT&T,
company to work at AT&T to do a project, then I can't.
Yeah, that's a non-compete too.
Yeah, that's the sort of non-compete that I'm thinking of.
Yes.
I have maintained relationships with companies where I've contracted through another agency, and then after a certain time period, that can happen.
Yeah.
But there's a time period there. So that's the non-compete that I think about when you're talking about contractors versus employees.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's important to make sure you have that in your agreements. You can definitely, work with an attorney to make sure you have everything in there to protect your company. But when you want to hire somebody as a contractor, you want to make sure it's very, very clear that they are a contractor and not an employee. And a lot of what I've found, a lot of small business owners is they're really into, well, we're a family and it's a family and, there's no family. Your family are the people at home.
Right.
You can have a great work environment. You can have a fun work environment, but they are not family. And because what you do is you're setting up this relationship that is more personal. And so they think that they're an employee. And what I have seen happen is people, when you don't set it up properly, I've had a client where then that person, when they are no longer working there, they go to the state and file for unemployment. And they then go to the state says, well, were you employee or contractor? They're like, oh no, because I was family and they gave me benefits. So I've seen where people I got a bonus. They told me when I had to be at work. So they start writing down all these things and the state says, well, let me go check.
Yeah.
That company, that's what the state does. And they go and check and they're like, well, XYZ company ain't paid us nary a bit of payroll taxes. And then what do? They send you a letter. This is the letter. They send you a letter that says, hey, XYZ, there's a person over here who was an employee of yours. You didn't give us payroll taxes. So not only do you owe us payroll taxes, you owe us payroll taxes, you owe us unemployment, you owe us fines, you owe us interest, all this around that
Let's talk
employee.
about that. Let's
Yeah,
talk about that.
talk about it.
Because payroll taxes is one of the, if not the, but I don't have the statistics on it, main money maker for the federal government. Lots of money comes from payroll taxes. So that's why there is, when you have a situation where someone conveniently forgets that they're a contractor and they go file for unemployment, and, you know, sometimes you separate because maybe you don't like the product that they're providing. Or maybe their
time is
their
up.
time is in. And just like you mentioned, you could go 2-3 months without your next gig. So there have been plenty of times where I've experienced during that 2 or 3 months when they conveniently forget, they go file for unemployment. And that goes back to having that proper documentation. You know, having, and not only the proper documentation on your end as a business owner, but also requiring them to provide you with the proper forms, the invoice.
The invoice.
The invoice.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Because
service.
And just to clarify, to make sure that that folks understand, unemployment is only available when you are a W-2. And the reason it's available to you is because your business has paid unemployment tax to the government. They paid on your behalf. They paid unemployment tax as well as the overall payroll tax. So all those different things you hear of the FICAs and the this, they paid on your behalf. So there's a portion that you paid and there's a portion that your employer paid. So that's the only reason, that's the only time you are even supposed to qualify for unemployment. And that's why you, as a small business owner, you have to have all of the proper documentation to say, hold up. They weren't an employee, and here's their invoices, here's their contract, and what was like where you said a statement you have them sign
Statement
that
of
says
work.
you are a contractor. Don't ask me for right.
You can have all that documentation. Let's be real. You can have all that documentation. But if you as a business owner do not abide by the proper relationship, you can have all that documentation and still be hit with penalties and fines.
Because what's the term we learned in business law? Substance over form.
Yes.
You can have the forms. But the substance of what you're doing could be different than all these forms. And the government will take the substance over the form.
That's right.
And one thing I just want,
because it's the number one
topic,
since we on this topic,
I gotta get it out.
Get it out. Yes.
When you have a business where the contractors are very similar, like you might have 20 people that work as a contractor. I've seen this like in therapy, for instance. Okay. Once one employee / contractor, or once one contractor that forgets they're an employee or forgets that they're a contractor, files for unemployment, work in that same type role for your company, and they're going to hit you with all of them. All of them. And they're going to get the financial records. If they got
because they're going to run an audit. They can do an audit.
Yes.
If you don't provide
Department of Labor audit.
They're going to get the information. And you know, sometimes relationships don't end on the right note. And so that person sitting at the unemployment office is more than willing to share all that information. Yeah, there's 30 of us therapists there. And so then the Department of Labor is like, ding, 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 ding. Oh.
They go,
look, they about to get their bonus.
Right.
Because I done busted a big one.
That's money in their pockets.
Yes. So just be careful. Make sure you understand what that relationship looks like from a business perspective. Get the right forms. And if somebody can't fit into a contractor box, pay them as an employee.
Pay them as an employee.
It's okay.
And you as the small business owner, you dictate whether you're going to have an employee or a contractor. you don't let that person dictate what they're going to be.
Right.
You do that based on having a conversation with your accountant or your person who's if you have the CFO services. You all decide based on where the business is, based on the type of work that needs to be done. You're kind of going down the checklist of making sure, is this something that should be an employee versus a contractor? I need to guide them more. I need to make sure it's somebody in a role where I'm, more hands-on with it. That's the kind of work I need. I need them to be full-time. I need them to be available to me Monday through Friday or whatever times your business is. Then you say, this has to be a W-2 role. You can't have that person come and be like, well, no, I gotta be paid $10.99 because I want all my money now. Okay, but that's not the person for you.
Right.
This is where you're gonna set up and run your business with ethical capitalism, right? That you're gonna run your business by the book to say, hey, well, then I'm sorry, then this isn't for you. This is an employee role.
And I think another thing that's key is not just making sure the person that's working with you, the contractor, knows that they're a contractor. But your client that you send them to knows that they're a contractor.
Yes.
That they know that, okay, you're my client. You're YBP's client. And this is Sarah who is helping me serve you.
Right.
Because what you don't want is Sarah acting like she has some sort of agency that she doesn't have.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, we're at our time, ladies. I think we've really covered, make sure you understand the difference between contractor and an employee, really deciding when you use both, the different forms you want to make sure you have, the things to avoid so you don't get those penalties. You can always call us at Your Balance Partners, yourbalancepartners.com. And there's also a contact form on there. So you can reach out to us and we're happy to set up something with you. And definitely send your questions as well. And we can make sure that we include it in an upcoming podcast and answer some of your questions and make sure that we can get into a little bit more around this topic. So it's really important as a small business owner, you're understanding and managing this.
Don't get hit with those fines and penalties.
No, don't play with the government.
Yeah,
you lose a lot of times
all the time.
Yeah.
So, because you do not have the money to get yourself out of it. Know thyself.
Yes.
So next topic is the shooting the shh. So as we're getting into these and you all get to know us better, this crew, we are a sports crew.
We love sports.
And one of the things that we love is women's basketball.
Absolutely.
And so we got tickets to go to the tournament this year in Birmingham.
NCAA women's basketball
tournament.
tournament.
So we're gonna be there supporting and
in honor of my
all
birthday.
Of that.
Yes, we don't have to go to Miami.
We're not going to Miami this time. We're going to Birmingham. But a lot of shakeup, a lot of things have happened. I don't know who's going to win this year.
Right.
Because USC, what about how they lost to Connecticut?
They lost bad.
No. That's
South
not
Carolina.
USC.
South Carolina.
University of South Carolina.
No.
Okay, sorry.
Not Juju.
Not Juju. Okay.
Sorry. University of South Carolina. Dawn and them. Dawn and them.
Yes. That was embarrassing.
Yeah. It was shocking, but that makes it more exciting this year.
Right, every week somebody that is
falls.
Right. So we don't know.
I love it though. I
mean, it's made it truly exciting. Yeah. So University of South Carolina fell to Connecticut. Texas beat LSU. Florida State just beat. I just saw it was an upset this week. But that was another one that happened because I think Florida State's like 20 or somewhere around there.
It's been a lot of upsets.
Who's your pick?
The dynasty period is over.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. What?
No.
Tell us.
Okay.
I'm South Carolina all the way.
All right.
They're going to pull it out.
All right. Okay.
I believe in them.
So Dawn and them.
Okay. Louis Vuitton Dawn.
Louis Vuitton Dawn. She says she does Gucci sometimes.
Yeah, it's Gucci sometimes.
So it's tough though. It's very competitive. And I was wondering, does the NIL and all that, is that playing a part in how these other schools are
able
becoming
to recruit
more competitive?
Well, it's
And
interesting.
what's that other thing called? Not NIL, but what's that other thing? The thing they go into.
The
portal.
transfer
Yeah, the
portal.
portal. Yes, that thing.
Yeah, I think all of that I think all that's had a big impact on recruiting,
college sports
how
as a
college
whole.
sports works. Have family members who are experiencing the portal and all that in NCAA sports right now.
Yes.
And it's a different. They actually, they get checks. Like, they actually get checks, which I always thought they should have gotten.
Yes.
Because, we're money people. And
Right.
we're like, follow the money.
Right,
You know?
right,
And how
right.
come the people who are getting the money and generating the money aren't getting any of the money or eating, Vienna sausages? Now they drive Lamborghinis. There was a big, it was a big
shift.
switch.
Yes.
Big switch. But yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting. I think that is a big part of what has changed recruitment, what has made maybe more parity, because people are like, if I'm not playing, if I'm sitting on the bench of this school, then I'm going to go portal and go to another school and see what opportunities I have there. And those schools also have the money to also attract, recruit, because that's another aspect of the game that I don't think has changed the quality of the game.
Right.
Yeah. And I would say that the one good aspect of COVID is that I got to see women's basketball. Now, I played basketball
Okay.
in high school.
Okay.
Michael Jordan taught me how to play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Wait a
know,
second.
I was most valuable player.
Wait, can we back
I got a lot of accolades.
Yeah.
Now, he doesn't know me.
Oh, okay.
But let's be clear.
You studied.
I
Yes.
studied his game. And I duplicated it on the court.
Okay.
As best you could.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And so, but as a former basketball player / athlete, I did win an intramural championship in
Okay.
college.
Well, then
Yes.
then I won the 8th grade. I was point guard of my 8th grade team. I got the trophy to prove it.
I came second place in the spelling bee.
Yes, look, we have the accolades.
We got awards on top of awards.
Yes.
But anyway, April,
I would just say that it wasn't. I didn't watch the sport. I just didn't watch. It wasn't. I watched. Glued to the TV for men's NCAA March Madness. Never watched female basketball until COVID. I found myself at home whenever those games came on and was intrigued.
All right.
I mean, they had Caitlin Clark. They had
Angel Reese.
They
Paige
got the
and them.
rapper.
Juju and them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the rapper in LSU.
I mean,
Flau'jae.
and it was
Flau'jae.
Flo,
Yep.
Flaw. Yeah, they had all of them. They
Aaliyah,
were
Boston and all of them.
entertaining.
Yes.
It was competitive.
Yes.
It was a combination of like you went from your girly girl all the way to your
Tomboy.
yes, which I was somewhere in between.
Yes. Okay.
You know, so I mean, it was awesome, and so from that, I mean, I think just things have just turned in the right direction for women's sports, in particular basketball.
Yeah.
So
It's exciting.
when
Now
I
you got-
was in Vegas, I picked up my Asia Wilson jersey.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna get your
Yes,
shoes?
I'm
You're gonna get your
supporting-
shoes
yes,
next
I
month
will be
so you can
getting the
match?
shoes. I'm 100% in.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yep. So
It took you back to your roots.
yes. I'm
Well,
very excited about
hopefully everybody else is enjoying, everything that's been happening around women's sports, and we're definitely watching and we're
Yes.
definitely engaging. We're sports chicks, so
Yes.
that's who we are. Well, thank you for tuning in to our podcast, to Balance Your Books podcast.
that. Tell a friend.
Yes, tell a friend, subscribe, like. And share also any questions and things you want to hear about in the future. So till next time, ladies.
Check us out at yourbalancepartners.com.